Namaskar. Today we are going to discuss about strategic implementation of environment sustainable practices. To discuss a strategic and ethical necessity which transformation of the institutional operations toward environmental sustainability. This is not an optional endeavor. It is a core mission which aligns with the healthcare industry. So, before going into the details of this course, so first we have to see the definition and also what is the multi-level approach. So, environmental sustainability that dictates that implementation actions to minimize negative operational impacts and conserve natural resources, ensuring their availability for future generations. The moral imperative for healthcare is the ethical duty to align its operations with its core mission of preserving health and life. And now we look at what would be the moral imperative. The moral imperative for the healthcare industry is to address its climate impact, which is the ethical duty to align its operations with its core mission of preserving health and life. It requires shifting from a narrow focus on the individual patient's immediate health needs, that means from the patient to a population level. That is a long-term perspective that includes safeguarding the planetary systems that sustain all human health. And healthcare's contribution to climate change, which violates this principle on a global scale. In general, normally we won't think about healthcare industry is also contribute towards the climate change. Yes, if the industry's operations from energy use to waste management that leads to damage to the environment, not only to the damage to the environment, they also ultimately harm the public health of current as well as the future generations. So now we will look at the healthcare industry. So, how this industries faces a profound ethical conflict. If we will look at the quote which is appearing on your slides, that its mission is to protect and restore health, but its operational footprint significantly contributes to climate change. That means the primary ethical mandate of healthcare is beneficence, that is doing good, and also non-maleficence, that is doing no harm. Yet, the healthcare industry faces a profound ethical conflict. Its mission is to protect and restore health, yet its operational footprint significantly contributes to climate change. Now we will see that with one example, that the use of anesthetic gases in operation theatres. So one such gas is desflurane. So desflurane is effective because it allows for rapid patient wake up and also recovery. That is highly beneficial for patient safety, especially in shorter procedure or when quick neurological checks are needed post-operation. So now we will see that what would be the environmental impact, that is the operational footprint. So desflurane is a powerful greenhouse gas which is an extremely high global warming potential. So its global warming potential is approximately 2540 tons, that of the carbon dioxide over 100-year period. So a single hour use of this desflurane, that can be equivalent to driving a car for 100 miles. So the anesthesia is consistently cited as a major contributor to a hospital's direct emissions, which comes under the scope 1. So here what would be the ethical conflict? So the anesthesiologist faces a choice between, so what would be the ethical conflict point over here? An anesthesiologist faces a choice between using desflurane, which offers a slight but real marginal benefit to the individual patient, which is the faster wake up period, and a less potent greenhouse gas like sevoflurane or an intravenous anesthetic, which gives a massive benefit to the global public health by drastically reducing the carbon emissions. So now we have to see the differences between these two. Using desflurane, which prioritizes the principle of beneficence, that is doing the most good for the specific patient in front of them, And what would be the second one? Choosing an alternative which is less polluting agent that fulfills the obligation of non-maleficence, that is doing no harm on a global scale by mitigating the health threats which is posed by the climate change. So now we will see that decarbonization in the national health services. So here I have taken an example of United Kingdom National Health Services that provides a system level case study on resolving this conflict. So the National Health Service became the world's first health system to commit to reaching net zero carbon emission, which comes under the scope 1. So what would be the scope 1? That is the direct emissions such as from the combustion of fuel in boilers and fleets and the use of anesthetic gases. And what would be the scope 2? That is the indirect emissions from the energy the NHS purchases like electricity by 2040. And also here the scope 3 also has to be mentioned because all other indirect emissions across the value chain, including the supply chain, which is normally we can give the examples of pharmaceuticals, medical devices, waste and patient and staff travel. So the transportation is also plays a major role, which is by 2045, which is driven by the ethical imperative to safeguard the public health. So now the NHS specifically targeted the use of anesthetic gases. So the trust adopted policies and also the phase out deflurane, So the target action by the NHS specifically target the use of the anesthetic gases. So they want to adopt policies to phase out desflurane completely. So restricting its use to only the rare clinical situations where there is no safe alternative exist. So next we will move on to the global health sector's climate footprint. If you look at the slide, the number indicates 5.2 that represents the portion of global net greenhouse gas emissions that the healthcare sector contributes worldwide. Just you have to imagine that if the global health sector were a country, imagine that it would be the world's 5th largest emitter. So what does it mean? It means that the total emissions from hospitals, clinics, pharmaceutical productions, medical device manufacturing and all which are related to supply chains are higher than the total national emissions of most countries in the world. So this emphasizes that healthcare, even though it is very vital, has a major environmental impact when compared to the industrial nations. So the United States alone accounts for 27% of these global healthcare footprints. That means over 1/4 of all the global healthcare emissions, that 5.2% share, originate from the US healthcare systems. So this is very high percentage, especially considering the US population, which is about 4.2% of the global populations. If we will look at the pie chart, that is titled the Deconstructing Hospital Waste. It illustrates the composition of total waste generated by the US hospitals. So if you will see, the diagram divides hospital waste into two main categories. One is the general non-hazardous waste, that is approximately about the 85%. This is the largest portion of the hospital waste, which is essentially waste that is not infectious, it is not toxic in nature, it is not hazardous in nature. So it is similar to the waste generated in the households, offices and other non-healthcare industries. And also second one is 15%, that is a regulated medical waste. What would be the regulated medical waste? This is, even though the portion is very smaller, but it is very crucial portion, which is the waste that poses a potential risk of infection or injury, and its handling and treatment and disposal are strictly regulated by the government agencies. So the most significantly, if we will look at the chart, that 85% of the waste that is general non-hazardous nature represents the cost savings. That means we can do that. That is reducing, reusing and recycling this large fraction that can definitely cut down on the cost which is associated with the specialized medical treatment and also disposal. So that means which is more expensive than managing general trash. And also we can reduce the waste by implementing effective recycling programs, and also the reducing the volume of general packaging and single use items that can lead to substantial drop in the hospital sector for the overall waste footprint. Now we will look at the key sustainable practices. What are the key sustainable practices? And we know that we are all committed to world class patient care. But we must acknowledge that excellent care requires excellent stewardship of our resources. So, in the depicted framework, what we are going to discuss key sustainable practices which addresses both our ethical duty and our bottom line too. So, we are going to examine the proven strategies that definitely turn waste reduction and energy efficiency into significant cost savings and measurable improvements in the quality and safety of our entire operating environment. So, first of all, we will look into the individual level practices. What are the individual level? That means the personal level. So, at the individual level, simple actions that can definitely collectively make a significant impact. Normally, we will focus on corporate or governmental actions, but individual level practices are the foundational bedrock for the sustainability. Simple actions, when done collectively, that can make a truly significant impact. So here I would like to mention the three key areas. Daily decisions drive environmental stewardship. The first one is waste reduction and circularity. So that means it is take, make, disposal model. So that means here reduce, reuse as well as the recycle. So reduction example, for example, instead of buying a single serving bottle water, so we can carry a reusable water bottle. So definitely it cuts down on plastic waste immediately. And if we will look at the example for the reusing, before tossing an item, ask if it can be given a second life. That means use old administrative forms as a scratch paper, or we can use the repurpose empty glass jars for the storage. So in these two we can reuse the things effectively. And if we will see the recycling, so understand what can be properly recycled in our homes, our offices. In hospital setting, especially important for 85% of the waste that is general non-hazardous in nature, which is similar to household waste. So in that, energy conservation and efficiency also we have to look into that. So because our energy consumption directly contributes to our emissions, so the goal is to reduce demand and improve efficiency. How do we do that one? How can we achieve? So the first one is switching off. That means the simplest action is being mindful for energy use. Turning off lights when leaving a room in a classic, but also it is a very, very critical step. And the second thing is, wherever there is a possibility, we have to switch, we have to convert energy efficient appliances to electronics, like using the LED lighting over traditional bulbs. And also the other example I want to give, that is a transportation choices. How you get around is a major factor. Using public transportation, cycling, walking instead of driving an individual car significantly reduces your personal carbon emissions. And responsible consumption and water stewardship is also one of the most crucial steps. So sustainability is also about making conscious choices. So that means if you will look at the water conservation, every drop counts. And you can help conserve a precious resource by fixing leaks promptly and installing water efficient fixtures like low flow faucets are there, and also shower heads at home. And conscious purchasing and opt for the reusable products over single use items, and purchase local and seasonal food to reduce the transportation emissions, which comes under the scope 3, which are associated with getting products to our plate. So by using these simple and powerful practices, from bringing your own mug to work to being diligent about turning off the lights, we fulfill our roles in the larger goal of environmental stewardships. Now, at the individual level, we have seen. Now, you have to look at, we have to focus on the massive impact on the corporate world also. So business play a crucial role in sustainability. By adopting processes and practices like renewable energy, sustainable sourcing, and waste reduction programs, these corporation sector also significantly lower the environmental footprint, which promotes the ethical operations. For any organization, one as resource especially intensive as healthcare, that is integrating these practices is not just ethical, it is a strategic necessity. So let's look at the key pillars of the corporate sustainability. The first one is energy transformation, that is a decarbonizing operations. So the most powerful action a corporate or the corporation can take is to change how it sources its power. One is the switching to renewable energy sources like solar panels and wind power, which reduces reliance on fossil fuels and also lowers the carbon emissions. For example, hospital can also adopt decentralized energy systems by implementing solar panels, wind turbines, or geothermal energy systems on site. So this directly reduces their scope 2 emissions, what we have discussed earlier. And the second one is the sustainable design infrastructure. So we must build smarter, incorporating sustainable design principles in new constructions and renovations, like using the energy efficient materials and also maximizing natural light, which reduces the demand from day one. So the other one is supply chain and its circularity. So supply chain is where the largest environmental footprint lies, that is a scope 3. So we have to shift from a linear take make waste model to circular one. So business must prioritize suppliers who follow sustainable practices, ensuring that materials are sourced responsibly as well as ethically. So what will happen? Then it will integrate the environmental, social and economic criteria upstream. And what would be the circular economy models? So this is our future. So adopting circular economy models that focuses on designing products for longevity and repairability and also the recyclability. So that will definitely minimize the waste. In a clinical setting, it is a shifting from single use items to reusable and reclaimable products also, like reusable isolation and operating rooms gowns. Even though they are very, very small, but yet it have a significant impact. And waste and wastewater stewardship also important factors. So implementing comprehensive waste reduction and recycling programs in workplaces definitely helps minimize landfill waste. For example, conducting regular waste audits that helps accurately identify where the volume reduction and more effective recycling can be achieved. And another is the water conservation. It is globalized. So everyone should implementing water saving technologies and practices in operations, which is essential to reduce consumption and protect local water sources also. This can involve the infrastructural upgrades like installing water efficient fixtures or utilizing rainwater harvesting for non-potable needs like irrigation, and also there are installing the sensors. So by adopting these sophisticated practices, corporations securing a measurable competitive advantage and achieving environmental stewardship, that generating substantial financial return on the investment and also fulfilling their social responsibility. Now we will look into the government level practices. Of course, government set the framework for widespread sustainable change like regulations, incentives and public infrastructure projects. But their role is essential and guiding both individuals and corporate which towards the more sustainable future. So environmental regulations are already there existing in place, and enforcing strong environmental regulation that limit pollution, protect natural habitats and promote sustainable resource management. And if we will look into the understand the environmental sustainable practices in hospital operations, the first focus area is energy efficiency and operational decarbonization. So that means renewable energy implementation involves reducing reliance on conventional power grid by adopting decentralized energy systems, and also complementing this is to integration of energy storage systems, that is a battery storage. And if the parallel efforts, if we will focus on reducing demand through the intelligent systems, that is energy efficient technology like LED lighting and advanced HVAC, that is a modern heating, ventilation and air conditioning systems. And if I would like to share a powerful example that proves the sustainability, which is just as an it is not just an expense, it is a generator of significant financial returns, the case of Mount Sinai Hospital. At Mount Sinai, they launched a robust energy efficient program, specifically on-site energy manager program. So the main strategy is it is focused on operational improvements, particularly within their HVAC system, that is a heating, ventilation and air conditioning, and also central plant operations. So they installed almost 15 energy control modules. So the program that resulted in annual energy cost saving exceeding 1 crore 5 lakhs 24,000 euros. So this is a massive return on investment which is achieved through the operational efficiency. And also this case study validates a critical point for all healthcare leaders, which implements intelligent systems and also upgrading equipment. And nice to have, it is not just like nice to have this one, but it is a core financial strategy that leads to millions in savings while simultaneously reducing the hospital's carbon footprint. If we will look at the focus area 2, that is a waste reduction, segregation and lean principle. So the initial steps, we have to conduct a regular waste audits, and following the audits we implement comprehensive recycling programs for all material types and eliminating waste through lean principle. What is lean? Here the philosophy is patient centric and centers on identifying and eliminating non-value added activities that obviously manifest as waste in hospital process. So what would be the benefit? By streamlining patient flow and optimizing operational efficiency. So these lean methodologies enhance patient safety and experience while simultaneously reducing material consumption. And I would like to give a case study over here. So we have talked about general waste, but what about the most challenging, that is a high hazard waste systems? The reality is that even these critical areas that can be successfully integrated into circular system. So here one more example, that is the UCLA Health and their reusable sharp containers program. So here the challenge, the sharp containers used needles, syringes and blades. They are classic example of regulated medical waste. So they are very hazardous in nature and traditionally end up as a significant single use waste. So what they have done, these wastes are handled with the utmost safety and they are sterilized and then incinerated. So the containers themselves undergo a rigorous process of sterilization and also reassembly before being returned to the health systems for reuse. So here the environmental and financial impact also, that eliminates approximately 40 tons of waste from the ending up in the landfill annually, and also the financial benefit is this closed loop system effectively reduces both the environmental impact and also the disposable expenditure. And focus area 3, if we will come to that, smart water management and the conservation. So conservation is achieved through infrastructural upgrades, including the installation of water efficient fixtures like low flow faucets, shower heads and toilets. So what we have initially discussed. And also we can also use or implement the rainwater harvesting for non-potable needs like irrigation and toilet flushing, that reduces the reliance on municipal water sources, and advanced recycling systems for the grey water and wastewater that further conserve the resources. And the Smart Hospital Initiative, I would like to give as an example that the Pan American Health Organization's Smart Hospital Initiative that focuses precisely on strengthening the hospital resilience. If we will see that the concept which is validated at St. Vincent and also Grenadines, after a severe storm impacted local infrastructure, the entire system was stressed. So, Georgetown Hospital, a facility that had undergone the smart hospital intervention, that was the only local hospital that remained functional. So, what made the difference here? So, critically the hospital utilized its rainwater reserves to become a water supply center for local community post disaster. So, this demonstrates a profound takeaway that investments in sustainable water infrastructure that provides the essential operational continuity and disaster preparedness. So, this is not just about saving water, it is about future proofing. And if we will see the focus area 4, that is a sustainable procurement of materials also. So, this is also most important. It normally comes under the scope 3 impact. This process includes the establishing the sustainable purchasing policies that can prioritize suppliers also who adhere to ethical and sustainable practices. So, in the construction and renovation, the use of green building materials is most important. The facilities must prioritize sustainable and non-toxic materials, particularly those with the low volatile organic compounds. So, the use of low volatile organic paints and furnishings is essential for the improving indoor air quality, which is a key credit area in certificate programs like LEED and also WELL building standard. So, the decarbonization effort must also extend into critical practice. Another area, which is the last one, that is a focus area 5, that is promoting a healthier indoor environment. So, the enhancing indoor air quality, which is achieved by the ensuring adequate ventilation system. So, that means maximizing the use of natural light and employing daylight harvesting techniques, which not only reduces energy consumption but also supports the creation of more pleasant and therapeutic setting, which is a recognized element of heating environment. Finally, it also improves the overall environment, extends to the exterior through the enhancement of local biodiversity as well as the green spaces. And also you can use the technological and community engagement. So, the utilization of telehealth technologies, for example, reduces the need for the frequent in-person visits so that we can diminish the transportation related emissions generated by the patients as well as the staff. And also using the green cleaning products that also definitely minimize the use of harsh chemicals that directly improves the indoor air quality for both environmental services and also for the patients. And the continuous improvement framework. So, I would like to conclude with a strategic roadmap. So, that means to ensure the sustainable practices, whatever we have heard, whatever we discussed in this class, the practices which deliver a long-term value and adapt to changing the conditions implementation, that must be governed by a framework of continuous improvement. That means the plan, do, check, act, that is a PDCA cycle that provides a structural methodology for iterative enhancement in all areas for sustainable procurement to operational efficiency also. The transformation toward environmental sustainability that provides a measurable competitive advantage by positively impacting the triple bottom line. First one is environmental stewardship, what we have discussed, and the second one is substantial financial return on investment through operational efficiency, and the third important one is social responsibility by promoting healthier outcomes. By embracing these strategies, what we have discussed throughout this class, hospitals enhance their structural and operational resilience. So, the strategic integration of sustainable practices that allows the healthier sector to move beyond the mandate of do no harm and actively become a vital partner in promoting both public and planetary health, ensuring the long-term viability of high-quality patient care. Thank you.